So in accordance with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, we are conducting this meeting in a hybrid model, both virtually and in person. The Cemetery Committee is conducting this meeting on February 1st, 2023 at 4 p.m. Eastern on the Zoom platform and in person, and in accordance with the town's policy, directive, and guidelines issued on April 1st, 2020 and amended on May 7th. If you are recognized, please state your name and address. This meeting is being recorded. I, Brian Davidson, hereby call this meeting to order. All committee votes will be taken via roll call. We will start with an attendance roll call of committee members. When I announce your name, please reply. Rod Rydell.
Here.
Jerry Susi.
Here.
And Jeff Walton.
Here.
And Brian Davidson. I am here. We have completed our deed signing. Thanks, Tish, for printing all those out. So we have our next proposed cemetery committee meeting, which would be held on March 1st, 2023, the first Wednesday of the month. Any issues with that date as of right now for anyone? Okay, terrific, great. We received our package from Justine. Justine, thank you for putting that all together for us. So in that package was our November 2nd minutes, 2022, and our December 7th, 2022 minutes. Have people had an opportunity to receive those minutes and review them?
Yes.
Terrific, terrific. Does anybody have any comments or changes to those?
Do not.
Hearing none, I would welcome a motion to approve the minutes of November 2nd, 2022 and the minutes of December 7th, 2022.
So moved. Second.
Thanks, Jeff. Thank you. All right, here. So we'll just do our roll call. Rod, we'll start off with you again. Rod?
Aye.
Jerry?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
And myself is an aye as well. So terrific. So we'll move along to our discussion items, which D1 are CPW staff report.
Good evening, everyone. So burial information and lot sales for the month of December and January, we had 5 full interments and 2 cremation ceremonies took place. And 10 single grave lots and 2 cremation lots were sold. The update on the columbarium project. So we did an RFP. We solicited vendors. We heard back from a couple that they weren't able to respond, but we did receive one quote back from Hardy Dork, and we'll be moving forward with putting together a request for a purchase order to engage with them to work with our committee staff to design a columbarium for Sleepy Hollow.
Exciting.
A couple things. Mausoleum lot with a potential sale we've been discussed in previous meetings. We received the final engineering plans from the applicant on Friday. We had received plans previously and had provided them comment. They've since addressed the comments and submitted those documents that we requested, and we're reviewing those internally with CPW engineering and also our consulting structural engineering firm, Wright Pierce. The budget. The budget was submitted in late summer, early fall. It's gone through a review process. It looks to, from what I've been told, to be kind of fully funded as submitted. One of the things that if the budget book, when it gets published here in the near future from the town, we'll see request an additional full-time employee in cemetery as a cemetery specialist position to work in that group with Tish. And then there's going to be, I believe that the town is adjusting the funding source for the cemetery budget. Previously in the past, it was like a 70-30 split. 70% was from the cemetery fund itself and 30 was from the general fund. I think they're going to be shifting that this year to a larger percentage coming from the cemetery fund. So folks see that, kind of not surprised, but that'll be listed in the budget book with details from townhouse. Other than that, Does you want to give me updates on some of the maintenance activities ongoing and
Just mostly plowing and picking up branches this fall from the storms that we've had. Yeah, not a ton of, a little bit of trimming of shrubs and stuff, but it's kind of full for that now.
some tree work right there?
Tree work, yep. Mayor took down 2 trees in Front Hill that we had marked for removal. And our tree department's been doing some cleanup of deadwood.
It's been a lot of windstorms coming through. I'm sure it's created a lot of.
Yeah, some tree damages and hazard trees were identified, so those were addressed.
The tree warden was involved with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't let me make those
Good,
decisions.
good.
Yeah.
Terrific. Great. Well, that's
Yes.
great. Thank you for that report. It's, driving through the cemetery, walking through it, this nicer winter that we've been having. I've seen a lot of people in there enjoying it, and guys themselves have as well. And it always looks great. So we really appreciate all of the efforts to maintain it in such tip-top state. So we'll move then to D2, which is a lot repurchase from the Bergstrom family.
This is a 2-grave lot, 14 Hawthorne Avenue, originally purchased by Arthur Bergstrom. His 3 children, his only heirs, own the lot now, and only want to retain the 1 grave that has been used. And they want to sell back the vacant grave space to us for $1,100.
Terrific. Does anybody have any questions or comments or Tish on this?
I'm just this is my first time through this, I believe. This is the set per grave price, or does that fluctuate on a repurchase or depending on where it is in the cemetery?
We purchase graves back for half of their current rate. The current rate for a single grave in the older section of the cemetery is $2,200. In the newer section, it's $1,200.
Great, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, so there's usually a somewhat of an economic, but it's more of a push, but just it helps. We have a long waiting list a lot of times getting into, especially the old area, there's a long waiting list, people very interested. So really just helps the community probably more than anything to do buybacks and then reallocate.
Oh, sure.
And stuff. So yeah, so a fairly common occurrence on the committee, Jeff, being new, just, so we usually run into these at pretty much every meeting. So seeing no other discussion, I would entertain a motion to repurchase the Bergstrom family graves.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we approve the repurchase.
Thanks, Jerry. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Jeff. So just go through the list again. We'll reverse it. Jeff?
Aye.
And then Jerry?
Aye.
And Rob? Aye. And myself is an aye. Thank you, gentlemen. All right, so now we'll move to D3, which is the Merriam family request gravestone girls.
So the gravestone girls are a couple of women who have been doing this for years. They create casts of headstones using an architectural clay. They're well trained. They know what they're doing. They've probably done, for families specifically, 3 or 4 of these in Old Hill and Main Street Burying Ground. They've all been approved. And the first time they did it for the Barrett family, I did have to go kind of watch them and see what they did, make sure the stone was unaffected and they didn't hurt anything, and they were fine. We don't allow gravestone rubbing. They actually do these in other places and sell them. Is why I have one. They would love to do Concord and sell them, but we don't allow that yet. But the Merriam family has requested the 9th great-granddaughter of Joseph Merriam has requested a cast of his stone. It's the, oh yeah, sorry, I forget, sorry. It's the oldest stone in Concord, 1677, up in Old Hill.
Joseph Merriam.
Joseph Merriam, yeah. Yep.
So Tish, this is Rod. Just to confirm, the family is requesting this for a family member, and so they're asking our permission to have this the company make this casting, and you've already had experience with this company, and they're reliable and they do a good job.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
3 or 4 in Main Street and Old Hill, and I think 1 at Sleepy Hollow. But all have come to the committee for approval.
Okay,
So past committees have approved this. The gravestone goals.
You. The other thing I would also note, I wasn't here for the previous one, is that if, typically somewhat of practice in town, public works and other entities, whenever we have somebody doing any type of work on town property, we require some type of proof of liability insurance.
Yeah.
So if the committee does decide to allow this, we would ask that authorization include the requirement that they show proof of insurance. We provide that the Concord Public Works prior to.
Does anybody have any other questions or thoughts?
Bruce?
Jerry?
I mean, Brian, sorry, Brian. I guess one of the things that caught my ear was the idea of, and I don't know if it's relevant here, but the idea of some party coming into the cemetery, doing a cast or somehow developing a product based on a gravestone, and then turning around and selling it. I know that on eBay, that amongst the prohibited items that you can't put up for auction are any kind of representations of people's graves. So I couldn't go to Author's Ridge, take a picture of Thoreau's grave, and then put it up on eBay saying, hey, who wants to buy a picture of Thoreau's grave? So I guess, it's kind of a 2-part. This request is the specific request of a family for a cast of a stone that is connected to their family. Do I have that right?
So it's a family member though, right? I mean, I think, the Merriam family, I think they had their reunion a few years ago, and it was like,
He used to come to town every year.
yeah, it's like 200-300 people, it is 200 or 300 people. So, although this particular brand, great, whatever, is interested, it is the grave of an entire, multiple generational family. So.
And they did, I think it was with the Barrett's headstone. They did the Barrett stone, which was the first one they did. They did it for one family member who then told a cousin that they had it. And before they gave them or sold them the second copy, they called us to tell us about it. They didn't market it to anyone else in the family.
Right. Sure. Okay, I appreciate that. I think, the overriding issue is just, the idea of, I don't know, the sanctity of a cemetery, or the idea of somehow kind of like leveraging a cemetery into a money-making venture. And that's not what we're talking about in this case. So thank you.
And is it the full grave, the headstone, or is it just kind of like this art,
It's a small stone, so it's my guess that it's the whole, it's only
Gotcha.
16 inches high. Yeah. So it's my guess it is the whole thing. So it wouldn't be that big.
Yeah. Sure. It's just the cool Gothic kind of artwork or name and date and all that personal stuff. That's it. Okay. Any other questions? Any other comments anybody would like to make? All right. Hearing none. We'll make a motion to accept the Merriam family's request that the Gravestone girls are allowed to make a reproduction, with the caveat that the Gravestone girls produce proof that they have insurance liability in case anything goes wrong. Would somebody like to make a motion?
I'll make that motion that we approve that request.
Okay, thanks, Jerry. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Rod. So just going down our list, Jeff,
Aye.
Jerry,
Aye.
Rod. Sorry, Rod, we didn't hear the aye. Aye, thank you, Rod. And aye myself. So D4, we have our Hoare lot request. We have Mr. Hoare in the room here with us. And so Mr. Hoare, why don't I slide over, or you want to come over and sit?
Where would you like me so that they can see me?
Why don't you come sit right here? So I think it'll be a better spot. We can have more of a,
Put it up on a chair. We didn't find an easel. So if you want to put it on a chair, that's fine.
Let's see if you need it.
So you can also try to share it.
Right, and Justine has it in the computer, so she can
Yeah.
share the document.
I didn't know what that was. Upside down. The numbers and stuff were a little difficult. Hello, my name is Alex Hoare. I was born and raised in Concord. And I'm here to ask for the cemetery's permission to put a fence back in the Hoare lot that was originally there. We have a picture of it from a 1906 publication. So this would be a restoration of what used to be. And I'll go through the details if all that you want. And I have extra copies if somebody wants to. Has a pretty good picture of the Hoare lot on it. And there's an attachment. There's an attachment on it, and you folks who are on Zoom, I understand you got this in your packet.
we did.
Yep. So the lot was purchased, 4 lots were purchased in the late 1850s, I guess. And somewhere along the line, there was a fence put up. And it stretched from the corner blocks to the blocks that define the steps into the lot. It was removed for some reason, we don't know why, and it's nowhere to be found. So I've done a lot of work to maintain the various 4 lots in Concord Cemetery and also in Lincoln. And this is sort of my last thing that I thought I'd do in honor of my ancestors. And so I hunted around for a fence that would work. And one of the things I did was I went to the company that helped the cemetery put in another fence. That was the Monroe lot.
Monroe, yeah.
Yeah. And I said, what would it take to replicate this? And they came up with some costs, which in my mind were pretty prohibitive. To duplicate the original fence, starting from scratch, including fabrication, would be around $48,000. And that's a little bit beyond what I thought I might spend, as much as I honor my ancestors. And the other alternative was to find what I'll call the guts of the fence that would fit between a top and bottom rail. And that would be, they said, around $25,000. And I thought, well, that's a little bit more than I thought of spending. So the fence that I found, for which you have a drawing, is available. It's in stock. It's sitting in a warehouse in Oklahoma. And they produced quite a bit of it. And what we have here is left over from that job. And so they're putting a hold on it. I have no money down on it, but they're putting a hold on it until this project moves forward. And they understand that I'm meeting with you and things are moving along. So it would stand about 2 feet tall. And it would be secured to the concrete, the granite blocks on either end. And it would also be secured to the granite blocks that run horizontally in front of the lot, which is how the other fence was attached. You can go there and still see the iron rods in the granite where the old fence was attached. So far, any questions?
No.
Brian, I do have a question. The in-stock fence, was that in our package? I wasn't able to find it.
Yeah, I think that was.
It was a second attachment.
I couldn't find it either.
Yeah, we had the
Is
original
it
photo. I don't,
That one? You didn't have that in there?
yeah, I think we had a photo of the original, of what it looks like today, and we had a photo of what it looked like originally, but we did not.
All right, hold on.
So
Let
I
me
had
see if I-
emailed with my proposal,
Where'd you go?
this
hold on.
drawing.
I'm doing too many things at once. Let me see
And
what
And it's the
the,
same drawing that I had blown up to this 36 by 24 drawing.
let's see.
So if you just bear with us, we're just. going
Sorry.
through the Package just to see what was included.
Yeah, Tish.
No, I apologize. I don't know how that,
Tish
got it.
included the original fence.
all right,
And
not a
it
problem.
Should have been, there should have been a PDF file
All right,
of that CAD drawing.
my apologies. Hold on. Ignore my emails. One second. Let's see. Hold on.
It's in the members here.
I think the members can
They can
hear.
They can't see what it's.
Yeah, yeah, so, you know, you can go on the website for Heritage, I think it's Heritage Cast Iron USA.
Yeah.
And, the name of the
Sorry.
fence is,
Fence proposal.
It's right. There's that.
Oh, sorry.
We'll share it right now.
Yeah.
yeah, the Terrace Collection.
Yeah. My apologies.
There you go. That's,
All right.
what just came up on the screen
So, yeah.
was submitted with the proposal.
Share Screen and there it is. Sorry about that.
So it, there you go. Can you all see that?
Yeah.
So obviously you buy the fence, but they're in Oklahoma, who do you have for the instance?
I haven't gone to a fabricator. I am aware that there's a fabricator in Acton. But I don't have permission to put up the fence, and I haven't asked him if he do the job. I haven't asked him for a quote. It's a work in progress. But I think the folks in, I forgot what their name is. Which probably knows.
American,
Yeah,
is it Cavalier?
Yeah.
That's the only one I
they,
probably.
so I originally contacted them. And they told me that they couldn't reproduce the original fence, but they're the ones that sent me to Heritage in Oklahoma. And also the folks that helped you out with the barium fence also sent me to Oklahoma. And so I had dialogue with them, and they're the ones that showed me their alternatives. And there was another alternative which was higher than the vertical granite posts, and I didn't particularly like that. I thought one that was 2 feet high was just fine and didn't dominate the site. And I don't think would be attractive nuisance. And it would put it back approximately, well, there would be a fence in place. It doesn't look exactly like the original fence, but I can't find the original fence. So this is what I've been able to come up with so far.
The fabricator in Acton is also installation.
Have to do the installation. I understand you'd have to be insured. I just haven't gone down that road yet. When I did talk to them, they came to the site, they looked at it, I gave them measurements, I gave them photographs. And so they have been to the lot. And they're the ones that said we could put something in, but we can't provide it for you. So it would have to be shipped to them. They'd have to assign for it, they'd have to unload it. And then they'd have to weld the pieces. So this comes in multiple pieces, each would have to be welded together to length. and there's 18 feet on one side, 19 feet on the other. So the panels all get chipped and then they have to be assembled by the fabricator. Fabricator has to come over and put it in, and it would be attached to the vertical granite posts on either end. And then there would be shoes that the legs coming down from the fence would be attached to the granite to make it sturdy and supported so that wells don't break over time.
I'm trying to take out the ones that are there.
I'm gonna leave them.
It's gonna be offset from that.
Yeah, or however it goes. The iron that's in there now has been there since the fence came out, not hurting anything. And they're all cut level with the granite stone.
So, Mayor here. So from an operations standpoint, I don't think we have any issues with an installation of a fence at this location. What we would want to see, while this detail does show the fence design, we would want to see a detail of the method of installation of how actually secured. It would be secured to the granite post, so your installer would be able to provide you that. Working with, I'm sure, the fabricator, and that's something that we would want to review and just make sure that that meets our requirements. I would also note that that installer that you mentioned in Acton, the town does work with them regularly for other type of work. So, yeah.
Is there any other information, Mr. Hoare, you'd like to present?
I would just be repeating what's in the letter. If I need to go over that, if something's not clear, I have anything questions. But I noticed how fast you went through all the other items on the agenda, and I'd rather answer questions.
Certainly. Okay, great. So then at this time in the meeting, why don't we, from the committee point of view, people, either have questions for the staff, have questions for Mr. Hoare, or just issues that they're thinking about that they'd like to voice. I just open the floor up.
So, Brian, it's Rod Riddell. Comments and then questions. First of all, Mr. Hoare, thank you. This is a tremendous gesture on your part for your family and for the cemetery. Thank you very, very much for pioneering and spearheading this effort. Really appreciate it on behalf of as a committee member, I really appreciate it. The second thing is just to confirm, you're talking about restoring the fence on the front part. You're not going around the entire perimeter of the.
There was never a fence around the perimeter. It was just on the face of the lot.
Okay. Okay, great. And then the last question is for Tish and Aaron with snow removal. When you plow snow on that street, which way does the snow get pushed? Does it get pushed towards the fence, or does it get pushed to the other side of the road?
Well, that depends on how much snow we have. Sometimes it goes in both directions, but the fence is higher than the snow would be.
Okay, so we don't have to worry about the snow being thrown and potentially damaging the fence
No.
that's been placed there. Okay, great. Great.
If I could add to that, there's a granite block that's about that tall. What is that, 2.5 feet? That runs the face of the lot, and it's shown in the picture in my proposal.
Yes.
And so the fence would sit on top of those blocks.
No, I'm quite familiar with that, but I'm just thinking about how the plows on Main Street here really do a great job of throwing the snow. And when it's heavy and wet snow, it really is a substantial force to be reckoned with. And I just want to make sure, if you're going to put in this effort to have this installed and this expense, that we're, it's placed in such a way that it isn't subject to have to resist, those forces or chemicals that may inadvertently be sprayed on it. So there you have it. Okay, thank you.
The granite blocks are about 3 feet back from the road, maybe more than that. And Tish knows better, but when she plows, I don't think the snow even gets piled up on the steps.
Okay, that's good. That's great to hear. Thank you. I have no other comments or questions, Brian. Thank you.
Sorry to jump in. What about the foundation of those blocks? Like I looked to the left, it seemed a little kind of like some of those little loose on some of those things. Granite stuff. Any concern there, Kish, at all? Or
We haven't noticed any real movement there if they move over 100 meters.
Sure.
So we haven't noticed any. We took a tree down in the back left of this lot 4 years ago, 4 years ago or so, and had to move one of the
Yeah.
walls out of the way to take the tree down and have it reset.
Each way several times.
So, yeah, haven't noticed anything in the front half.
When there was construction on that road, when they resurfaced the road and there was some work done on the gully where the water moves. And there wasn't any impairment to the granite block during that time. And they're pretty solid.
And Tish, I know we talked a little bit about the perpetual care fee. This is not on the list. We had that issue a few months ago and stuff, but it's from a perpetual
No, it's all
fee
good.
that says you can't do anything on a lot unless that's all up to date. That's not an issue.
Yeah, no, that's, no, okay, for.
And just a little history, I think, for the committee, since we have some newer members on the committee. This door has been very involved with maintenance of this lot. The committee and Tish and myself have worked with them on other restoration efforts for this lot in the past, and everything's run very smoothly and
Thank you.
good work.
The fence would have to be powder painted. I understand that happens to things that are gonna be outdoors. I don't know the process, but I think that's what it's called. So that it would hold up. And one of my requirements is that it be as maintenance free as possible. I don't want to be in here in 5 years anyway. So that's a requirement I have. And I have talked with the manufacturer about that, and it doesn't come powder painted. It will come black, but then she told me the fabricator would have to powder paint it.
And it was a 25-year warranty, I think I saw on their website. For just 25 years.
You know what better than me,
Right.
It's
Around for a while and painted. Yeah, I mean, I guess, one area that maybe I'd be a little concerned about is, of course, the cemeteries on the National Historic Registry, we're putting up a fence that, we have an original of what it looks like. And, although, I mean, I certainly like your fence, it looks attractive, it's not necessarily historically accurate, I guess. Are there any other concerns in that area that the committee has, or are people comfortable with this, or do you feel we need to gather more information? Anybody has any feelings that way, or?
Brian, I guess I would respond that, based on what I've seen and what I've heard, I don't see any, I don't have any concerns.
Jerry, I don't have any concerns either. I think this is a very specific case of a family member wanting to maintain and enhance the burial plot for his family. And that is wonderful. We're not having some person not associated with the family come in and say, I want to do a historic reconstruction here. I would think about this in a different category. That's how I'm thinking about it, Brian. Yeah.
Thanks, Jerry. Thanks, Rod, for your comments.
I will tell you that Tish, excuse me, go ahead.
I was just gonna add to that. First of all, thank you for making this offer and making this move forward. And I think while it's not identical, I think it's very consistent with, the architecture as far as from a untrained eye standpoint. It doesn't stand out. I think it fits in nicely.
Thanks, Jeff. Thank you for your comments.
in working with Tish to prepare for this, she said, well, there must be a lot of relatives. Have you talked with them? So she said, well, do you know if anybody would object? So I sat down and I wrote an email to a whole bunch of people in the family that of various generations. I wrote to 11 relatives, which is about all I could really think of that would care. And so far I've heard from 11. And they're all supportive. The remainder I just haven't heard from. I don't write to them very often, and as far as I know, it went into their spam file.
Thank you, Mr. Hoare. So at this time, well, I see a few people in the public online, so I'll just open this particular issue open for any public comments. Hi, you'd like to state your name and your address for the record?
Am I called on?
You are, Ms. Mooney. How are you
Thank you.
today?
I'm wonderful, thank you. I am Alex's wife, so I just wanted to weigh in and say, having watched all the time and energy that he has put into maintenance of the Hoare lots, I'm in awe. I should have done as much for my own family, and I appreciate that he's trying to do the homework to get something that looks appropriate. And that obviously we would take good care of once it was established. And I like the fact, this is on a different topic, I like the fact that you have both in-person meeting and Zoom. And it must be that this room is specifically set up that way. I think that's terrific. In the town of Amherst, we have only one room that has dual capability, so appreciate it.
That's wonderful. Thank you for your comments, Ms. Mooney. And Mr. Hoare, you're a lucky man to have a supportive spouse on your endeavors. So, really wonderful.
He's a town councilor for the town of Amherst. And I recently joined the Conservation Commission for Amherst. And so I know what it's like to sit in your shoes. Anyways, just another opportunity to give back.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, appreciate it. A long line of Hoares always giving back to our team. So appreciate that.
If I could just address it's not like the original question. I'm continuing to look around, and Chris, I forgot his last name, with the company that helped you with the other fence. He's the one who did the estimates. And I'm aware that it doesn't look like the original. I tried hard to find the original. Once I decided that it was beyond my means to actually reproduce it from scratch. And I would ask it, if I will continue to look for something that comes closer to the original. I mean, I'm a history major by training. And I appreciate the comment that it doesn't look like the original. Believe me, I tried. But and I will continue to look, if I find something that looks closer to the Merriam fence or the Hudson fence that's right next to it, then I would ask that I be able to put that up and work with Tish on it. I don't have anything in my hip pocket right now, but if you approve this fence, it doesn't mean that I'm going to get on the phone necessarily right away and hire the fabricator to put this in. Concern was raised. I'm perfectly happy to continue to work to try and find something closer to the original that would make me happy. I'm just coming to you with what I've been able to find to date, and I would be happy to put it up. But if I can find something closer to the original, that would make my heart sing. That's how I feel.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you.
Seb, I guess two additional comments. One is that there's only two other lots in the cemetery with fences that were existing prior to the establishment of the rules and regulations that are currently in effect. So this, like Mr. Hoare mentioned, it provided us with a photo. This was an existing fence that came down for some unknown reason for the past. The current rules and regulations, so I'm only saying this for transparency, not that the operations department has a strong feeling either way on this specific project, but the rules and regulations specifically says that fences are not allowed on lots. So just in case committee members haven't read that, the rules and regulations document does say that. So that is one of the reasons that it's before the committee as well this evening. Committee has the authority and power to overturn that. So I just wanted to make a note so that nobody felt like they didn't.
We're unaware.
Yeah,
Thank
right.
you. Thank you, Aaron. Appreciate that. Yeah, so. Folks, I don't know if you have a trusty copy of your rules and regulations, but as Aaron was saying, it's section 5. And it talks about boundary markers being prohibited, and fences are included in those boundary markers. But in this particular location, as Aaron was saying, these rules were probably drafted well after these graves had gone in, because there are a number of boundary markers. Not many wrought iron fence, but many, in the form of granite and whatnot. So I do think that, especially with the photos from, I don't know, how long, about 1906 or so, or a long time?
The date of the publication, which I have in Dish as, is 1906. It was also published in 1912 in a similar document that included Lexington, but we don't know. We don't know exactly when the fence went in. We don't know exactly when the fence came out. Some people have said a tree might have fallen on it, or some people have even said that the family may have donated the iron to war effort in World War I.
So I think Aaron's point about this being grandfathered in long before the rules and regulations prohibited, I think we're in strong position, especially with the photography, the support and evidence that it was there at one time, predating the rules. The only other thing, before we made a motion, did we want to hear from the fabricator?
I would say that if the committee was going to make a motion to allow the continuation of, or allow an installation of a fence, is that, the caveats that they work closely with Concord Public Works operations, highway and grounds.
Sure.
And making sure that we get, a copy of a detailed plan for the actual installation, how it's going to be secured to the post, and to the granite pieces that are there now, and then we're able to inspect, and because we'll probably have our engineering group look at it as well, just make sure it's installed per the specification and everything too. So
I would expect to do exactly what he was saying.
yeah, sure. And again, provide insurance for the installer as well. So.
All right, so there's a number of items on that one. So, okay, so I would entertain a motion to accept Mr. Hoare's request to replace the fence at the Hoare lots, with the caveats that the fence be what has been demonstrated here today via his exhibit, or a fence that is more in line with the original per the photos of his submission, and that the work is done in conjunction and with approval of the town of Concord's Public Works and Cemetery Department. Somebody like to, so moved. I see Jeffrey. Is there a second? Jerry, I see a second. Perfect. So we'll go through. Rod, we'll start with you, Rod.
Aye.
Great, Jerry.
Aye.
Jeff.
Aye.
And myself, an aye as well. So good luck, Mr. Hoare. We hope your project works out, and it will be a nice addition to our Sleepy Hollow Cemetery. So.
And I want to publicly thank Tish in helping me prepare for this meeting. As usual, she was above and beyond what anybody would expect. And I've worked with Tish a lot in the past, and we're all lucky to have her. You already did.
Wonderful. Well, Mr. Hoare, you're welcome to join. We have a few more things to decide, but
I'll
you're
get out of the
also
way.
very welcome. I know it's a ride back.
Yeah, I'll get out of the way so that you can, and I appreciate this book longer than every other item on the agenda. But you move quickly. My conservation commission could learn.
You like to be diligent, but Okay, terrific. So moving on to our next agenda item, which is 37 Lexington Road. This is just put on the agenda to make sure we have a public record that shows that the cemetery committee is aware of constructions on property that abuts the cemetery. As we all know, pretty much from every location in the cemetery, you can see residential property, and many of those properties over the course of time go through rehabilitation or new construction. A few years ago, we did have a situation where there was kind of new construction, and it took several meetings to kind of discuss, what can we do? And I think some in the community may have felt that, we weren't aware of the full scope of what was going on our boundaries. So we could put this on the agenda to discuss it. At that time, we learned, there's really very little of the cemetery committee that we can do other than, perhaps drafting a letter to the various boards that deal with construction, or asking the property owner to voluntarily appear and have a discussion with us. I hope you've had a chance to review 37 Lexington Road's application for their construction. I think we sent a link around, and it gives the full details. This is the Concord Art Association, if you're not familiar with 37 Lexington. It looks, they have elevations, they have pictures of what it will look like, all the narrative, all the information that you could need to really get an understanding of what they plan to do. To me, it looks beautiful. It looks like it will have the most minimal impact. It's on the far right of the Old Hill burial ground, so not really too much of a won't really hurt the vistas at all from the Old Hill burial ground. And so, again, this is really kind of to put it on to the record that we discussed it. I'm happy to open it up. My personal opinion, it looks great. I have no concerns regarding the construction, but I just open it up to the floor if anybody'd like to raise any concerns, or if you feel as though we. Bye, Mr. Ward. Have a good day. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a good night now. Drive safe.
So Brian, it's Rod Rydell. I do have a couple of comments. I have reviewed all the documents, and I reviewed the documents because I wanted to have an idea of how this might impact the planned work that we're doing on the stone wall that is on Old Hill that abuts 37 and 29 Lexington Road. So I think the only impact that I could detect or assume is that it may create a timing issue for the town when we had proposed to repoint the freestanding stone wall that it runs along Old Hill along the boundary with 29 and 37 Lexington Road. And so it may well be that the town will decide maybe we'll wait until after the major construction is done, so that if there's any heavy equipment, we avoid the problem of damaging any work that had been done there. But I would leave that to the town and the cemetery group to make the decision as what the timing is. Apart from a timing impact, I see no impact, and I just want to note that the grant proposal is going to be included in the town warrants, along with everybody else's grant proposals. Everybody's going to, being proposed to be approved, but that's good news for us. So that's $340,000 from the town, which I presume the town will vote positively for. And this work on this one freestanding wall is included in that proposal. So there you have it. So we're likely to get the money, and there's likely to be some coordination needed with respect to this one particular stone wall.
Great, thanks, Rod.
Aaron? Some feedback. Hi, Rod. Aaron here. So I would note that I did meet with our engineering department division earlier today, and they attended a meeting with some other department members that are involved in that project to review. We do internal reviews on a number of projects in town. So they're reviewing that from a zoning and planning standpoint. So I will talk to them and relay your comments to them and the concerns, and make sure that those are noted in our CPW conference relative to that project.
Okay, great, thanks.
Thanks, Aaron. All right, any other comments anybody would like to make, any concerns that they'd like to raise? Great, seeing none, we'll go to chair comments. Just kind of looking around at what's going on in different committees around town. Listening to the historical commission the other day, they were talking about some of the signage around town that relates to the first people, the indigenous native that lived in Concord well before settlers. In that discussion, the cemetery kind of came up. I don't think they were aware that on the knoll, which had quite a bit of research done before it was created, that identified, Native American contact and living in the area, that a beautiful stone and marker had been placed in an area, and in fact, a whole area is reserved where we will put two areas are reserved where we actually will keep open and not place graves to be respectful of the first peoples. And so I think this, I'm sorry if I'm not saying it correctly, but the committee was saying, we need to do more. We need to recognize the first peoples. Let's go up to the cemetery and put up a big, sign or statue or some type of thing to recognize the first peoples. And I think the intent was wonderful, but I don't think maybe they had actually driven through the knoll to be able to see that the information was right there already. So just, again, just something that was in another committee that touches the cemetery, just kind of pass it along. Also, I think, as a group, we may want to start thinking, so obviously there's a lot of planning going around 2025, the anniversary of the April alarm. And, many tourists are expected to come into the town, I think, around that time. And of course, the cemetery being a large draw from a visitor's point of view, I'm sure our town employees are working diligently on that, but I don't know, from a committee, if we want to think about what those impacts will be, what we can do as a committee to be prepared. Do we at least just talk with maybe the chair out there to see, if there's any plans going on inside the committee? So I don't know, Aaron, Tish, if you guys have heard much about that or
Yes, so I'm involved with the and spoke with some individual members of the 250th planning committee. So they have some meetings coming up, and I will be the point for Concord Public Works working with that committee.
Okay.
On any planning preparations, things like that. So if there's anything that the cemetery committee has any interest in or concerns, questions, comments, funnel them directly through me and I can relay. But also if committee members want to reach out to obviously that committee directly, by all means.
Okay.
I know there's other fronts that we're working on from CPW to do some preparations and not only for like a parade that day, but also other events that are going to be in town, like some tree plantings, things like that, to commemorate the event. So
nice.
if there's anything that's cemetery committee members think of that they'd like to highlight for that day or for the event for that year, maybe start brainstorming at a future meeting, something like that.
Yeah, how do people feel? Do people feel like that might be something that, worthy of putting on the agenda at a future meeting to kind of think about how the cemetery could participate in some way, or touch base with Tish, think about ways we can, if there's ways to do it. Obviously, we have a number of Revolutionary War veterans in our cemeteries,
So there's a committee of people that's already working on.
already
something.
working on that.
Yeah, David Wood with the History and Education Committee is already working on a map. I've already given him all that information.
Wonderful, wonderful.
And Tisha, you're actually on the committee too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hospitality invitations.
Hospitality and invitation.
Yes,
Oh,
so not involved with the history and education, but did give David Wood all the maps and all that information.
Great, great, great. My only invitations experience was my wedding, so I feel bad for
Thank
you.
you.
That was going through books and books to pick out the right one. Terrible experience. So good luck to you.
I have a whole good committee of people.
All right.
I do.
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, so that's all I had for the chair comments. Any committee members would like to share any thoughts, any comments that they have? Jerry.
Yeah, I just want to thank Aaron and Justine and Tish for getting the columbarium stuff to the point that it's at now. Onward. Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. It's time in February. Would it be appropriate to reconvene our subcommittee, or is it time to dismiss our subcommittee?
Yeah, I think once we have a, I wouldn't dismiss the subcommittee. We'll probably want to, what we're going to do is once we have an article purchase order or a contract approved, we work with.
Great. Okay, so maybe it's February. I'll reach out after the meeting with Jerry and I. You guys can find a room to talk about it. Terrific. And public comments. I just want to point the
Brian,
Yeah, Rod.
sorry, I do have a couple of comments. One about the 250th. It would be terrific if we could tie in Tish with, I know that there's been a lot of talk about planting 250 trees around the town. And it would be great if we could identify somewhere of, say, a dozen really high impact urgent locations to replant trees in the cemetery, to take advantage of that and take advantage of that effort. So if there's anything I can do to help that, working with the garden club, and if there's anything else I can do on your end, that would be great. That's the first thing. Two other items. So this, next item refers to the grant which we're likely to get for the stone walls and stone structures. That's only 50% of the work that needs to be done. And I'm proposing that we do not ask for the other 50% in this next grant cycle. I think it would be far better for us to get some work done and to see how the budget estimates are working and to see how well things go and to have some, it's a bad pun, but some concrete evidence that what we're proposing actually is working, in terms of the repointing and the reconstruction. But what I do want to ask of Aaron and Tish is whether or not there's any money in the budget to do a kind of engineering evaluation similar to what was done with the stone structures for all the metal structures that we have in the three cemeteries. And that's a great starting point to make a proposal for grants to restore or replace metal structures, whether it's the fences, the gates, whatever. But having that engineering assessment and an initial estimate was very compelling, sort of homework that could be presented to a grant committee, whether it's in town or somewhere else. So I'd like that just to be on the table. And if you get back to us in a couple of months as to whether or not there's budget money to do that, that would be great. But it would be great to have the equivalent engineering assessment. And then maybe we can think about writing a grant for that in a year or two.
Thank you, Rod. Appreciate that. There's a lot of head shaking going on in the room, so appreciate it. Take it under advisement.
Okay, thanks.
All right, seeing no other comments, we'll go to public comments. And I'd just like to recognize that Andrea was the original columbarium flag bearer. And so we are lucky to have her. That she must be very happy to hear RFPs are coming back. How are the friends?
They're good. They're meeting again. They changed their meeting schedule, so we'll meet in 2 weeks. And so there's not a lot of news to report.
Lovely, lovely. Well, we appreciate you joining us, and great. All right, seeing no further business, make a motion to adjourn.
So
I'll
move.
make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, guys. So we'll do a roll call. Jerry?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Rod?
Aye.
And myself as an aye. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining and doing such great work. Really appreciate you guys giving up your day.
Good night.
Thanks, folks.
Thanks, everyone.